What would you do if a little child looked up at you and said a name that brought back the deepest pain in your heart? A name you haven't heard in years, a name you once loved with everything you had, a name that now only lives in your memories. This is the story of a billionaire who found a lost little girl during a business trip. She was scared. She was alone. She held nothing but a worn-out teddy bear. He tried to help her. He offered her food, warmth, and safety. But when she told him her mother's name, he froze, because that name was from his past, a name he thought was lost forever. And that's when everything changed. Stick around till the end. It'll touch your heart. And hey, comment where you're watching from. I'm pinning the best comment, so don't be shy. The calm before the twist. Mr. Anderson was the kind of man people noticed when he entered a room. He wore sharp suits, drove luxury cars, and handled millions of dollars like it was nothing. People looked up to him. He had everything: money, success, and power. But the truth was, his life felt empty. He had no one waiting for him at home. His world was full of meetings, phone calls, and hotel rooms. One cold evening, Mr. Anderson flew into a busy city for a very important business deal. The kind of deal that would add even more zeros to his already big bank account. He checked into a fancy hotel as usual. His assistant had already prepared everything. The room was perfect, the schedule was packed, and the pressure was on. But something felt off. He couldn't focus. His mind was noisy. Even though everything looked good on paper, he felt restless. He didn't know why. After a quick dinner, he decided to go for a walk. Just a short one. Maybe the fresh air would help. It was getting dark, and the streets were quiet. The shops were closing, and people were rushing home. Mr. Anderson walked slowly, hands in his pockets, thinking about nothing and everything at once. He passed a small alley near the hotel. That's when he saw her. A little girl, no more than 5 or 6 years old, was sitting on the edge of the sidewalk. She was wearing a light jacket that looked too thin for the cold. Her shoes were old and dirty. In her arms, she held a small teddy bear, its fur worn out, one ear hanging by a thread. She wasn't crying, but her eyes looked lost, like she didn't know where to go. Mr. Anderson stopped walking. Something about her made him pause. Maybe it was the way she clutched the teddy bear so tightly. Maybe it was the way she looked at the street, waiting for someone who never came. Or maybe, deep down, it reminded him of something he had buried long ago. He could have ignored her. Most people would. After all, it wasn't his problem. He had a meeting early in the morning. He had a deal to close. He was a billionaire. A stranger's child wasn't his concern. But something told him to stop. He looked around. No adult in sight. No one is calling out for her. No sign that someone was looking for a lost child. The street was almost empty. He took a step closer. Then another. The girl noticed him but didn't move. She just looked up, quiet and tired. "Hey there," he said softly. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer. He knelt down, trying not to scare her. "Are you lost? Where's your mom or dad?" Still no answer. She just hugged her teddy bear tighter. Mr. Anderson reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a wrapped chocolate bar from his flight. He held it out. Hungry, the girl looked at the chocolate. Slowly, she reached out and took it. He smiled a little. "There you go. You don't have to be scared. My name's Mr. Anderson. I'm staying at that hotel right over there. Do you want to come inside? It's warmer there." She looked at the hotel, then at him. She hesitated. But after a moment, she gave a small nod. Mr. Anderson stood up slowly, offering her his hand. She didn't take it, but she followed him, holding her teddy bear close to her chest as they walked toward the hotel. His mind raced. Who was she? Why was she out here alone? And where was her family? He didn't have any answers. But something deep inside him whispered that this wasn't just a random meeting. He opened the hotel door for her, and they stepped into the warmth of the lobby. He asked the front desk to call someone for help, maybe the police or social services. But before any of that, he just wanted her to feel safe. He guided her to a soft chair by the fireplace. The girl sat down, her small hands still clutching the teddy bear. Mr. Anderson sat nearby, watching her. He could have ignored her, but something told him to stop, And that decision, I was about to change everything. Mr. Anderson sat quietly across from the little girl as she slowly ate the chocolate bar he had given her. Her hands were small, her fingers slightly red from the cold. She didn't say much, but she didn't run away either. That was something. He could tell she had been alone for a while. Her clothes were a bit dirty, her shoes were worn out, and her face had a tired look no child should ever wear. He took off his coat and gently draped it over her shoulders. She didn't stop him. She looked up at him for a brief second and gave a tiny nod. That small gesture made something stir in his chest. It was a feeling he hadn't felt in years. A waiter from the hotel restaurant walked by. Mr. Anderson called him over quietly and ordered a bowl of warm soup and some bread for the girl. While they waited, he kept his tone gentle and soft. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated for a moment, then whispered, "Lily." "That's a beautiful name," he said with a smile. "Lily, do you know where your mom is?" She shook her head slowly. "Did you get lost?" Another small nod. He leaned back, trying to keep calm. He had never dealt with a situation like this before. Normally, he made decisions about companies and stocks, not scared little girls. But right now, none of that mattered. The soup arrived and Lily ate quietly. She didn't speak much, but he could tell she was very hungry. She finished every bite. After a while, she started to relax a little. Her shoulders lowered, and she looked around the hotel lobby. Mr. Anderson gently asked again, "Where did you last see your mom?" Lily looked down at her teddy bear, then up at him. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "She went to get food. She told me to wait, but she didn't come back." Mr. Anderson frowned. "How long ago was that?" She shrugged. "I don't know, a long time." His heart ached to hear those words. No child should be left like that. He wanted to believe that maybe the mother had just gotten delayed, but deep down he knew it had been too long. Still, he didn't want to scare her. "Do you know where you live?" he asked gently. She shook her head again. He nodded slowly and stood up. "Okay, Lily, I'll make sure you're safe. You can stay here for now. It's warm and you can rest. We'll figure things out in the morning." Lily looked at him again. There was fear in her eyes, but also something else. Trust. He asked the hotel staff to prepare a small guest room for her with a child's blanket and a warm bed. While they did, he sat beside her. He didn't have children of his own. In fact, he had avoided having a family for years. His past had too much pain, and he didn't want to open that door again. But now, sitting with this lost little girl, he couldn't look away. He saw something in her. Something familiar. Something he couldn't explain. When the room was ready, he walked her there. She held his coat tightly around her shoulders and followed him without saying a word. Once inside, she looked around the room and walked straight to the bed. "I'll be right outside," he said softly. "You can rest now, Lily. Everything's going to be okay." She climbed onto the bed and hugged her teddy bear. Just before he turned off the light, she looked up at him. "My mom's name is Sarah," she said quietly. Denamar. Anderson froze. The room went silent. The air felt heavy. He couldn't move. He couldn't even breathe. That name, that one name, it had been buried deep inside him for years, but now it hit him like a lightning bolt. Sarah. His sister. His baby sister. The one who had run away from home many years ago. The one who had broken all ties with the family. She had fallen in love with someone their parents didn't approve of. A man with no money, no background, just a kind heart. She married him against everyone's wishes. After that, she was gone. No one heard from her again. They thought she had chosen her new life over the family. But now, here was Lily, his niece. His sister's child. He felt dizzy. He sat down on the edge of the bed, trying to make sense of it all. "Sarah, was your mommy?" he asked, his voice shaky. Lily nodded. "She told me stories about her big brother. Said he was smart. Said he was strong. She showed me a picture once. I think it was you." Mr. Anderson closed his eyes. His heart felt like it was breaking all over again. He had spent years angry at Sarah. Years of thinking she had turned her back on the family. But now he realized, maybe she hadn't. Maybe she had just wanted to live her life. Maybe she had been struggling all along. And now, she was gone. And this little girl, her daughter, was sitting right in front of him. He looked at Lily again. She had fallen asleep, hugging her bear. His mind was racing. So many thoughts, so many regrets. And then she said something that made his heart skip a beat. A name from the past. Mr. Anderson sat on the small chair near Lily's bed, staring at the wall. His thoughts were racing. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. Sarah. That name had opened a part of his heart he had closed long ago. The pain came rushing back like a storm. He looked over at Lily. She was already asleep, curled up under the blanket, hugging her teddy bear tightly. She looked so peaceful, unaware of how her words had shaken him to the core. He leaned forward and rested his elbows on his knees. Sarah, he whispered to himself. It had been many years since he said her name out loud. For a long time, he tried not to think about her. The memories were too painful. But now there was no way to push them away. They came flooding back. Sarah was his little sister. She had always been full of life, laughing, singing, dreaming big. She looked up to him when they were younger. She used to follow him around the house, always asking questions and always wanting to play. She was kind, gentle, and warm-hearted. But everything changed when she turned 18. That's when she met him. He was a simple man. He didn't have much. No money, no family name, no high education. But he made Sarah smile. That was enough for her. She told the family she was in love. She wanted to marry him. Mr. Anderson remembered the night clearly. Their father was furious. Their mother cried. And he didn't say much. He just stood there, angry and confused. Why would you throw everything away for him? He had asked her. Because he treats me like a person, she replied, her voice steady. Not like a burden. The next morning, she was gone. She had packed her things and left with the man she loved. That was the last time Mr. Anderson saw her. For years, the family refused to talk about Sarah. They said she made her choice. They said she didn't care. Mr. Anderson tried to move on. He threw himself into work. He became successful, built a business empire, and earned respect. But deep down, he always felt something missing. Now, here was this little girl, Lily, and she had just told him that her mother was Sarah. His heart pounded in his chest. Could it really be true? Could this lost, cold child be his niece? He pulled out his phone and quietly searched for a photo. The only one he had left of Sarah. It was old, taken when they were teenagers. He looked at the picture, then looked at Lily's face. Her nose, her eyes, even the way her hair curled at the ends. There was no doubt. She looked just like her mother. Tears welled up in his eyes. He hadn't cried in years. But now, sitting in that quiet room with the sleeping child, he couldn't stop them. He felt a mix of guilt, sorrow, and something else. Hope, he whispered again. You're her daughter. You're my sister's child. The memories kept coming. He remembered how Sarah used to sing in the garden. How she would sneak cookies into his school bag. How she always tried to make peace whenever there was a fight at home. And then the memory of the argument before she left. The shouting, the tears, and the silence that followed. That he had been angry for so long. But now, sitting here, all he felt was regret. Maybe he should have tried harder. Maybe he should have followed her. Maybe he should have written to her. Anything. He didn't know what kind of life she had after she left. But judging by Lily's condition, it must have been hard. He wanted to ask her more, but he didn't want to wake her up. She needed rest. Still, his mind wouldn't stop spinning. Was it possible? Could this little girl really be his niece? He stood up and quietly left the room, closing the door gently behind him. Outside, he called the front desk and asked for any nearby child services or police contacts. He wanted to report the situation, but he also wanted to be there when Lily woke up. He needed answers. When the call ended, he sat down in the hotel lounge, still trying to process everything. He remembered how Sarah had always believed in happy endings, even when life was tough. Maybe this moment was the start of one. He knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to let Lily go through more pain. Not while he was alive. He thought about what he would say to her when she woke up. How could he tell her who he really was? Would she understand? Would she trust him? So many questions. But one thing was clear. Lily had entered his life for a reason. Later that night, Mr. Anderson stood at the doorway and watched her sleep. The soft sound of her breathing filled the room. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for now he promised himself one thing: he would protect her, no matter what. And deep down, he hoped Sarah was watching, somewhere above, smiling at the brother who finally found his way back to her, through the eyes of her child. The next morning, Mr. Anderson sat at the small table in the hotel suite, waiting for Lily to wake up. The sun peeked through the curtains, casting a warm light over the room. He sipped his coffee slowly, his mind still full of questions. Last night had changed everything. He now believed this little girl could be his niece. But he needed to hear more. He needed to be sure. Soon, Lily stirred in bed. She rubbed her eyes and sat up, still holding her teddy bear. Mr. Anderson smiled gently and walked over. "Good morning," he said softly. She nodded. "Morning. Did you sleep okay?" She looked around the room and gave a small smile. "Yeah, it was warm." He sat on the edge of the bed, trying not to look too serious. "Can I ask you some questions, Lily? Just to understand how you ended up here." She hesitated for a moment but then nodded again. "Tell me about your mom. What was she like?" Lily's face lit up for a second. "She was the best. She sang to me. She used to read stories every night. She gave the best hugs." Then her smile faded. "But she was also sad. A lot." Mr. Anderson listened closely, his heart tightening. "She said we didn't have anyone, that her family didn't want her. She cried sometimes when she thought I was asleep." He looked down, feeling a sharp pain in his chest. "Did she ever talk about her family? Any names?" Lily shook her head. "She just said they were rich and proud, and that they didn't understand." Mr. Anderson swallowed hard. That sounded exactly like his family. Cold, proud, silent when they should have cared. "What happened to her?" he asked gently. Lily looked at her teddy bear and held it tighter. "She got sick." She said it was something in her stomach. She was tired all the time. One day, she didn't get up. A tear rolled down her cheek. I tried to wake her, but she didn't move. A nice lady from next door called someone. Then they took my mom away. She never came back. Mr. Anderson reached out and gently placed his hand over hers. "I'm so sorry, Lily. I stayed with that lady for a while," she continued. "But she got tired of me. She said she couldn't take care of me anymore. One morning, she gave me a sandwich, a little bag, and told me to wait outside. She never came back." He closed his eyes, unable to speak for a moment. His hands trembled slightly as he realized the full truth. Lily had been left alone, lost, cold, hungry, and all this time she was his family. She looked up at him. "Are you mad at me?" He blinked and quickly shook his head.
No, no, Eswetie.
"I'm not mad at you. I'm just sad you had to go through all this." She wiped her nose and asked, "Do you know my mom?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, a long time ago, before you were born. She was my sister." Her eyes widened. "You're my uncle?" He smiled through his tears. "Yes, I didn't know where she went. I didn't know she had a daughter. But now, I know. And I'm here." She sat still for a moment, looking at him like she was trying to decide if it was okay to believe. Then she moved closer and leaned against him. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her gently but firmly as if he was afraid she might disappear again. His heart broke all over again. But this time he had a second chance. They sat in silence for a while. Mr. Anderson didn't need to say much. Just being there with her, feeling her small body against his, was enough to make him promise himself. He would never let her go through pain again. Not on his watch. Later, he called for breakfast. They ate pancakes and fruit. Lily talked more freely now. She told him about the small apartment she and her mom lived in. How her mom used to work at a diner. How they never had much, but there was always laughter. He listened to every word, storing each memory like a treasure. He had missed her whole life, but now he would make up for it. He would make sure she felt loved and safe. Always. He also started making quiet plans. He would take her to the doctor for a checkup. He would speak to a lawyer. He would look into adopting her legally if needed. And when the time was right, he would take her to his home. Not just as a guest, but as family. For now, he just wanted her to smile. And for the first time in a long time, she did. As the day ended, Mr. Anderson looked at her curled up on the couch, watching cartoons. The world outside was still the same, busy, cold, fast. But inside this room, something had changed forever. He had found a little girl. But more than that, he had found a piece of his heart he thought was gone. And he was never letting it go again. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Mr. Anderson sat alone in the darkened corner of the hotel room. The soft hum of the city buzzed outside, but his thoughts were louder. He looked at Lily's small figure sleeping peacefully on the couch, her teddy bear hugged tight. It was hard to believe how fast everything had changed. Just a day ago, he had been here only for business. But now, nothing else seemed to matter. His mind drifted to the past. Sarah. He hadn't thought about her in so long. Not deeply like this. The memories came slowly, then all at once. He remembered her laugh. It used to fill the entire house. Bright and full of energy. She had always been the wild one, the dreamer. She would dance around the house barefoot, sing loudly even if she was off-key, and talk about all the places she wanted to visit. Sarah never cared about money, not the way the rest of the family did. She believed in love, kindness, and doing the right thing, even when it was hard. If someone was being bullied, Sarah stood up for them. If someone felt left out, Sarah would sit with them. Mr. Anderson, who was older and more serious, often thought she was too soft for the world. But secretly, he admired her. Then came the day everything changed. Sarah had met someone. A man who didn't have money or status, but he had a kind heart. She had fallen in love deeply. When she told the family she wanted to marry him, the reaction was cold. Their parents were furious. They said she was throwing her life away. They told her she had to choose her family or him. She chose him. Mr. Anderson had been shocked, but he had stayed silent. He hadn't fought for her. He hadn't stopped her. He thought she'd come back. That life would teach her a lesson and she'd return. But she never did. And the family? They never spoke her name again. It was like she had vanished. And in a way, she had. He now realized how wrong he had been. She had chosen love, real love, and she had paid the price. Alone, struggling, and sick while he sat in a penthouse signing deals and climbing ladders. All those years, he had the power to find her. He could have searched. He could have helped. But he didn't. The guilt sat heavy in his chest. He had been a coward, hiding behind silence and pride. And now she was gone. Tears welled in his eyes as he thought about her final days. Had she suffered? Had she been scared? Had she wondered if her family ever thought about her? He wiped his face and took a deep breath. He couldn't change the past. He couldn't bring Sarah back. But maybe, just maybe, he could make things right now. He looked at Lily again. She was his second chance. His way of honoring Sarah's love, her courage, and the life she gave to her daughter. He stood up quietly, walked to the window, and stared out at the city lights. Everything looked different now. The deals, the meetings, the success, it all felt empty. What mattered now was in this room, sleeping peacefully because, for once, she felt safe. He whispered softly, as if Sarah could somehow hear him, "I'm sorry. I should have found you. I should have been there. But I promise, I'll be there for her." He placed a blanket over Lily, making sure she was warm. Then he sat beside her, just watching her breathe. In that moment, he wasn't a billionaire. He wasn't a powerful man in a suit. He was just a brother filled with regret, and an uncle who wanted to do better. The night stretched on, quiet and slow. But Mr. Anderson felt a little lighter, a little closer to peace, because now he had a purpose. And it was no longer about making money. It was about making things right. He didn't know what the future held. But he knew one thing: he wasn't going to lose Lily. Not like he lost Sarah. Not ever again. And with that promise sealed deep in his heart, he closed his eyes beside her. letting sleep take over. Just two souls, once strangers, now connected by love, loss, and a second chance. The days after that night were a blur of emotion and quiet steps toward something new. Mr. Anderson, once known only for his serious nature and busy life, found himself standing in places he never imagined, like the family court office, signing papers to become the legal guardian of a little girl he had only just met. But deep down, he knew this was right. This was what Sarah would have wanted. It wasn't easy at first. Lily was still nervous around him, even though she liked him. She had been through so much in such a short time. Sometimes, she would wake up at night, crying softly. Sometimes, she would sit quietly, hugging her teddy bear, lost in thought. Mr. Anderson didn't push her. He just sat nearby, letting her know she wasn't alone anymore. He started changing his routine. For the first time in years, he put work second. Meetings were moved, and business trips were canceled. He didn't care what people thought. All he cared about was Lily. Slowly, something beautiful began to grow between them. She would smile more, talk a little more each day. They began having breakfast together every morning, simple things like toast, eggs, and fruit. But those moments meant everything. Mr. Anderson would read the newspaper while she sipped hot chocolate. Then she would tell him little stories about her mom, how she loved flowers, how she used to sing lullabies, how she would always hold her hand when crossing the street. Every time Lily talked about Sarah, he saw his sister again, not just in the memories, but in Lily herself. Her eyes sparkled the same way Sarah's did when she was happy. Her laugh was just as full and sweet. And the way she cared about people, it was all Sarah. One day, Lily found an old photo album in his study. Inside were pictures from years ago, back when he and Sarah were kids. Her eyes lit up as she flipped through the pages. "That's Mommy," she said with surprise, and Joymr. Anderson sat beside her, pointing at photos and telling her the stories behind each one. For the first time, he talked about his childhood with Sarah, about how they used to play hide and seek, and how Sarah would always win because she was small and quick. Lily laughed and asked him to tell the stories again and again. And he did, every time with a smile. They started going out together, parks, bookstores, and even ice cream shops. Lily loved strawberry ice cream just like Sarah. Mr. Anderson found himself enjoying those small moments more than any business victory he had ever had. They laughed over silly jokes, played games, and even watched cartoons together in the evenings. At night, he would tuck her into bed. It became a quiet routine. He would sit beside her, stroke her hair gently, and tell her good night. "Sweet dreams, Lily," he'd whisper, just like Sarah used to say. And she would smile sleepily and whisper back, "Good night, Uncle." That word, uncle, it meant the world to him. With every day that passed, he felt himself change. The coldness that had wrapped around his heart for years began to melt. He no longer felt so alone. His home, once quiet and still, was now full of life. Toys in the hallway, drawings on the fridge, laughter echoing through the rooms. It was all new, and it was all beautiful. He also began to talk to Lily about her future. He promised her she would never have to feel alone again. She would go to school, make friends, and have everything she needed. But most of all, she would have love.mr. Anderson found himself thinking about Sarah often. He would look at the sky and wonder if she could see them, if she knew he had found Lily and was doing his best to take care of her. He hoped she was proud. Still, even with all the joy and healing, something felt incomplete. There was one thing missing, something that needed to be done. For Sarah, for Lily, and for himself. He knew what it was. And soon he would do it. But for now, he held on to the peace that had returned to his life. He held on to Lily's hand as they crossed the street, just like Sarah used to do. He made her pancakes in the morning and told her bedtime stories at night. He helped her with homework and laughed at her silly jokes. He wasn't just a guardian anymore. He was family. They were building something real, one day at a time, one smile at a time. And in his heart, he knew love had come back into his life, not through success or money, but through the quiet strength of a little girl who reminded him of everything good he had once lost. One quiet afternoon, as sunlight spilled across the living room floor, Lily sat cross-legged with a small box in front of her. It was old and dusty, something she had been holding on to for a long time. Mr. Anderson was reading nearby when she called out softly, "Uncle, I think this is for you." He looked up and walked over. Inside the box were a few worn-out belongings. A tiny sweater, a photo of Sarah holding baby Lily, and at the bottom, a folded piece of paper. It was yellowed with time, carefully tucked inside a small envelope. His name was written on the front. Just one word, Andrew. His hands trembled as he picked it up. Lily whispered, "Mom said, one day I should give this to you. She told me it was important." Mr. Anderson nodded slowly. He wasn't ready, but something inside him said it was time. He sat down and carefully opened the letter. The handwriting was gentle and familiar. The words, they hit him like a wave. "Dear Andrew," it began, "if you're reading this, then I'm probably no longer here. I don't know where life has taken you, or if you even think of me anymore. But I think of you, every single day." He stopped reading for a moment. His throat tightened, and his vision blurred. He took a deep breath and continued, "I know I hurt you when I left. I know I hurt the whole family. But I want you to know, I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because I had to choose love. He didn't have money or a big name, but he gave me happiness. And later, he gave me Lily." Mr. Anderson glanced at Lily. She was hugging her teddy bear, watching him quietly. He gave her a small smile and returned to the letter. "I thought about coming back so many times, but every time I looked in the mirror, I saw someone the family might still hate. I was scared. I told myself you'd be better off without me. But the truth is, I missed you. I missed my big brother." His hands gripped the paper tighter. "You were always so strong, so focused. But you were kind too, kind in ways only a sister notices. You protected me from bullies, shared your candy, even taught me how to ride a bike. You were my hero, Andrew, and I never stopped loving you." By now, the tears were falling freely. "Life didn't turn out the way I hoped. My husband passed away too soon, and then I got sick. But Lily, she gave me strength. She has your fire, your eyes. I see you in her." He paused again, overcome by emotion. The room was silent, filled only with the soft ticking of the wall clock. "I'm writing this because I have one hope left. I hope Lily finds her way to you. I hope you take her in, not out of duty but out of love. She deserves family. She deserves to know where she came from, and that she was always loved." The final lines were shaky, written with a fading hand. "If you're reading this, thank you for taking her in, for not turning away. And please don't live with regrets. You've always had a good heart, Andrew. Maybe this is our second chance, not just for Lily, but for you and me too. I love you. I always have. Love, your sister, Sarah." Mr. Anderson lowered the letter and wiped his face. He didn't speak for a while. The room felt heavy with memory and emotion. Lily walked up and sat beside him. She didn't say anything, just leaned her head against his arm. "I miss her too," she whispered. He nodded, pulling her into a gentle hug. "She loved you so much, Lily, and she loved me too. I didn't know that. Not until now." He folded the letter slowly, placing it back into the envelope with care. It was no longer just a piece of paper. It was a bridge, a message from the past that helped heal a wound he had carried for years. For the rest of the day, he thought about that letter, about every word, every memory it brought back. But more than anything, it gave him purpose. It wasn't just about caring for Lily anymore. It was about honoring Sarah, about building the family she always wanted. A home filled with love, forgiveness, and warmth. That night, as Lily drifted off to sleep, Mr. Anderson stood by her bedside and whispered, "I promise you, Sarah, I'll take care of her. I'll give her everything you dreamed of, and I'll never let her feel alone again." He turned off the light, closed the door gently, and walked back to his study. He placed the letter inside a frame and set it on his desk. Right beside an old photo of him and Sarah from when they were children. It was no longer just about looking back. It was about moving forward with love, with hope, and with a heart finally open again. After reading Sarah's letter, something inside Mr. Anderson shifted forever. It wasn't just grief anymore, it was a strong, clear purpose. He had spent most of his life building wealth, closing deals, and climbing ladders. But none of that mattered now. Not compared to this. He had missed so many chances to be there for his sister. He couldn't change the past, but maybe he could do something meaningful with the future. The very next week, Mr. Anderson started working on something new, a foundation named after Sarah. It was dedicated to helping lost, abandoned, and at-risk children. He wanted to make sure no other child had to sit alone on a street corner like Lily had. He wanted every child who had nowhere to go to find a safe place, a warm meal, and someone who cared. And he wanted every single one of them to know that they were loved. He used his business knowledge to bring the best people on board: social workers, child psychologists, volunteers. He poured in time, energy, and his own money without hesitation. It wasn't just about charity. It was personal. It was his way of telling Sarah, "I'm sorry. I'm here now." At home, life had changed too. Lily was no longer the scared, quiet girl clutching a teddy bear. Now she smiled more. She laughed at silly jokes. She asked questions, told stories, and played in the garden with her new puppy, which Mr. Anderson had surprised her with on her birthday. For the first time in a long while, the house felt alive. She had a room of her own, painted in her favorite colors. Her school bag was neatly packed every morning, and every evening, she'd come home full of stories about her day. Mr. Anderson would listen carefully, nodding and asking questions, just like Sarah would have done. He wasn't perfect at first. It had been years since he'd been close to anyone. But Lily's kindness slowly helped him grow. She taught him how to be gentle again, how to listen, and most importantly, how to love. One afternoon, as they walked through a park hand in hand, Lily looked up at him and said, "Uncle, do you think Mom sees us?" Her voice was soft, unsure. Mr. Anderson looked down at her, his eyes kind. "I think she sees everything, and I think she's proud of you, of us." That moment stayed with him. It reminded him that while Sarah was gone, a part of her still lived on, in Lily, in the foundation, in every child they helped. News of the foundation began to spread. People started sharing their stories online. A powerful businessman who had once been cold and distant had now opened his heart and home to a little girl in need. The story touched thousands of people. Some cried. Some sent letters of support. Others donated, volunteered, or shared their own stories of loss and love. Articles were written. Videos were made. The world seemed to pause and take in the quiet strength of their bond. What started as pain turned into purpose. From brokenness, they had created something full of hope. Mr. Anderson didn't care about the attention, but he smiled whenever he saw another letter from a family who had been helped because of the foundation. He smiled when children laughed in the new shelters they built. And he smiled every night when Lily said, "Good night, Uncle." Before falling asleep, she had given him a second chance at life, a chance to heal, to grow, and to give. And he had given her something just as powerful, a future filled with love, safety, and the promise that she would never be left behind again. One evening, they stood by the edge of the garden, watching the sky turn orange and pink. Lily was holding her teddy bear, the same one she had that first night. But this time, her arms weren't wrapped around it for safety. They were loose and relaxed. She stood close to Mr. Anderson. Smiling peacefully, he looked at her, his heart full. She had changed his life. She had reminded him of what really mattered. And now, every decision he made, every step he took, was guided by that simple truth. From broken pieces, they had built something beautiful, something lasting, something full of love. Wow, what a story, right? It's amazing how a single moment, a small decision, can completely change someone's life. If you were in Mr. Anderson's shoes, would you have done the same thing? Would you have taken that first step and helped the lost little girl? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Also, don't forget to tell me where you're watching from. I'm really curious to see how far this story reaches. I'm going to pin the best comment, so be sure to write something sweet or meaningful, and I'll make sure it stands out. If you found the story touching, make sure to hit like and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming, life-changing stories. I'll see you in the next one.